And even as like supportive as my own dad was, like growing up, he's like, Jake, you don't want to pursue art full time. Like that's a hard living. And yes, it is. And I've lived the life of the starving artist, from time to time. There's always this duality that you have to deal with, especially as a professional artist, that it's like what's done in the studio is sacred, but then it has to like become a product. You have to put a price on it. It robs so much of the magic out of the process to do that. But, it's like, it's something you learn to deal with. You raise your art pieces upright. They're like a kid. You raise them upright. You pour your heart into them, but they have to go out in the world and get a job. But, what I will say is like, if anything, it's made me hunger after the Lord. He meets us in the practical before he makes the miracle,
Oh, wow.
And like, that's what I've seen him do, like time and time again in my own life is like he just meets me in what is practical. I mean, it was my childhood pastime. He'll take a work of art and use it in a way that I never even imagined.
Howdy, friends, and welcome to the Storyfield. This is a podcast where we talk about business, faith, and life in general.
Okay, so here's the deal. We want you to be encouraged. We want you living in hope. This life we live is complex. It's hard at times. At the Storyfield, you will find great stories of normal people just like us who will inspire you. Our goal is that you leave encouraged, inspired, and excited to move forward in life. But before we get started, one thing though, if you're listening and you find yourself really hopeless right now, send us an email at hope@thestoryfield.com so we can pray for you. Thanks for joining us today. Let's get started. Well, Storyfield, I really am. I know I say this a lot, but today, man, I feel honored to have you on today, Jake.
Thank you.
Pronounce your last name for me, just so I don't botch it up on the air.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Weidmann.
Okay.
So Jake Weidmann.
Jake Weidmann. And I'm so grateful because when I came across your information, Jake, I've honestly, and I'm just true confession, I've never heard of the designation of Master Penmen. And I started looking at it and I was like, oh my gosh, dude, this looks like a work of like stuff you would see on the cathedral roofs in Italy, back. So I'm so pumped. And you're the youngest person by 3 decades to ever get it. Only one of 9 Master Penmen in the world.
Yeah,
that's so awesome. I jumped on your website and almost was like teared up just on like the gifts that the Lord has given you and the stuff that you have on there. So
wow.
I'm really pumped. We got a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much. That really means a lot.
Yeah, you bet. So I'm gonna get your website first. Let's tell people just to jump on now, and you can tell me about the social stuff. But for everybody who's listening, there's 2 websites I want you to check out pretty quick, like I did. One is jakeweidmann.com, and that's JakeWeidmann. And then the other one is you design jewelry and make it with your bride.
Mm-hmm.
It's called everydayheirloomco.com.
That's correct.
Go to jakeweidmann.com and everydayheirloomco.com. So, okay. I want people to know that quick so they can be like Googling it while they're listening. So
that's great. Perfect.
Okay. Well, we got a lot to talk about. I have a lot I want to ask you about, and the work you do is unbelievable, and it just attracts me to the Lord. And I think that's really what your new book is about as well. But first, would you introduce yourself to the guests? Give us some background at the Storyfield. We just kind of like to track you from where you grew up, what your childhood was like, and then just kind of we want to hear the story. That's what it's all about. So introduce yourself and let's get going, Jake.
Wow. Okay. Well, good. Having written this book, that I got some good practice at telling my story.
Oh, perfect.
Because a lot of it, the book is written almost, it's written quite a bit like a memoir, almost modeled after like St. Augustine's Confessions, but with a lot of like opportunities that reflect back to the reader. So yeah, it's very, very fresh in my mind. But essentially, I grew up here in Colorado and have always had a love for art my entire life. I mean, my parents knew they would never worry if they couldn't find me, because I would always be up in my room either coloring or drawing away. And so it was a passion that always followed me, but it's something I never thought I would do as a living. I just, I kind of, it was always sort of like this, constant friend who was always there, but
Yeah.
I almost like kind of took art for granted in a lot of different ways for the role it played in my life. But as I look back, I just see like God was using that all the way through my story to really draw me into a closer relationship with him and ultimately lead me into the calling that he had on my life. And so even though I was like, when I was really young, I wanted to be a cowboy, so I'd draw pictures of horses obsessively.
Oh yeah.
And then I grew out of that, and I wanted to become an Air Force pilot like my father.
Okay.
And so I used to draw like fleets of airplanes and, and
awesome.
just obsessed over that. And then, the academy, I didn't make it into the Air Force Academy. And so I thought I'd pursue psychology and then do art therapy. And that was sort of the way of keeping this underlying passion along. And so I ended up going to Biola University, got my degree in psychology. And, but, when I graduated, I had this shiny new degree, and I graduated in the middle of an economic recession back in 2008. And so,
Yeah.
The only thing, ironically enough, that I was able to pay my bills and make ends meet was doing various art projects.
Oh,
And I was doing everything. It's like when you're when you're trying to make a living that way, it's like you say yes to everything, even if you don't know how to do it. Like I was asked to do it.
Can you do that? Of course I can do that.
Of course I can do that. And then,
100%.
you kind of build the airplane while in flight, and so I was doing that. Like I was making bronze sculptures when I had never made one before.
Oh my gosh.
I was doing like t-shirt design and addressing wedding envelopes, because that's kind of the bread and butter for a lot of calligraphers and stuff. And then meanwhile pursuing my certificate as a Master Penmen, and which was such a niche thing. And I've had like the blessing of having supportive parents all my life. But when I told them I was going after like the Master Penmen certificate, like they were like, okay.
Probably like me, like what exactly?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty left field, and it always bears some level of explanation. And so like back during the golden age of penmanship, and not many people knew there is such a thing as golden age.
Explain that. Explain when you say that term, what does that mean, like back when?
So that was like it was basically from the basically the end of the Civil War up until about the 1930s was regarded as sort of this golden age of penmanship. And so it was a time where you could like go to various like art colleges or business colleges and get your degree as a penman, because every institution back then needed somebody who was able to write legibly, and in some cases be able to create beautiful calligraphic works like certificates and things like that. So, but the ones who were able to do kind of like above and beyond what everybody else could, they were regarded by their peers as Master Penmen. And so they were the ones that were just pushing the envelope on the art form. So there was like, and there's unbelievable characters in history, like, F.B. Courtney. He was regarded, they called him the pen wizard. Not only was he a master penman, but he was called the pen wizard.
Wow.
Because he was like, he could create magic at the tip of his pen. Like he could write a word upside down and backwards. Or in the middle of writing, he would change hands with the pen and write with the other hand because he was ambidextrous.
Oh,
and
gosh.
and he would teach an entire like classroom full of students. And then at the end, he'd fill this chalkboard with museum worthy calligraphy and flourishing. And then in the end, you'd take a piece of chalk in each hand and he would write his name in opposite directions as perfect mirror images of each other. And so he was amazing. And then, there was Mataraz, Louis Mataraz, who was he was regarded as the king of penmen. And he created like various types of scripts on his own. And one of which is serif script, which is what the Coca-Cola logo is modeled on.
So yeah, he created that.
Yeah, every time you drink a Coca-Cola, there's Louis Mataraz. There's the fingerprint of a master penman.
The king penman.
Yeah, so it's like, even though it's like it's a very rare and kind of it's almost like this lost art form, in so many ways it's ever present in our lives, and they've still left their mark. So that was like one of the things that just drew me into it. It wasn't only just the beauty of it, because I had worked obsessively on my own handwriting, like growing up, to the point like when I got into college, like my psychology professors were like, Jake, your essay test looks like the Declaration of Independence.
Oh, it's amazing, man. I'm telling people, you got to go check out the stuff. Like, what are you writing so beautifully? It's an essay. Like, stop it.
Yeah, but it was just a passion in my heart. And again, not something that I thought I would ever do full time, but it's like the Lord just, he always made a way. And so it was right around the time that I got my Master Penmen certificate in 2011 that finally God brought these unbelievable people into my life and said, Jake, you have a real gift here, and we want to help you steward it. Like, you need to be doing this full time. And we see you doing all of these different things, but we want you to be able to like concentrate it down and focus it into exactly what the Lord has in mind for you to do. And so it's just, it was an unbelievable kind of set of circumstances. And,
take a time out there for a second. Cause I want to, cause you made a statement in your book. So for all who are listening, you can grab your book online, but the book talks about, it's called Old Soul, New Creation: Experiencing God Through a Life of Art and Faith. Mm-hmm. Go to your website, you can get it. It's on Amazon, everywhere else you can get it. Just released, in mid-April. But you made a comment on the book that I wanted to talk about before you get into it, because we're about there. You said, I think this is a big deal. It took me a long time to come to grips with the calling God had on my life.
Yeah.
Because you were just about to talk to that. I want to talk about that. Like, what were you meaning when you said that? And explain that, the calling, because you said, you went and got your psychology degree and you were pursuing another path. And then this thing is just in you. Even your professor probably pointed out, and then the Lord's bringing people right in your path. So just kind of talk about that statement a little bit, because I want to encourage somebody. Like, this is more than just, this impacts more than your story only. This is like, there's desires and dreams in people and passion. Right. I want you to speak to them too, Jake, while we're talking.
Sure. No, absolutely. I think, as I look back and I look at like, of course I was scared to death, and I doubted, not only did I doubt my, like, the ability that God has given me, but I doubted his ability to provide through it. That if I did seek after his kingdom and righteousness, that all things would be added to me if I was just faithful to that one thing. And so I think I was always trying to improve my usefulness before the Lord. I thought, like, you can't work through an artist, it's like, this is kid stuff. This is something that I always grew up, and loved as a kid. But now that I'm adult, is this the childish thing that needs to be put away?
Yeah, I even kind of made a note earlier to ask you kind of that, like the negative connotation that culture would say, like, well, he's just the starving artist type of thing, or you're just,
Yeah.
it's like it almost pushes it aside, like it doesn't count.
Totally. Yep.
Yeah.
And even as like supportive as my own dad was, like growing up, he's like he would tell me that as I was like shopping out colleges, like, Jake, you don't want to pursue art full time. Like
Yeah.
that's a hard living. And yes, it is. I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
there's some serious like uh realities to that, and all stereotypes start somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's like,
Yeah.
and I've lived the life of the starving artist, from time to time. And but what I will say is, like, if anything, it's made me hunger after the Lord more than anything. It's driven this desire to rely on him. And it's kind of funny, like I was talking to a friend of mine who, like, he's a big engineer. He's worked for some of the big software engineers. He's worked for some of the biggest companies in the world. And after having like this thriving career, he goes, I noticed like sort of this lackadaisical aspect of my faith where I wasn't relying on God because there was always this really nice, beautiful paycheck. And so it was like, I needed to actually step out in faith. And I was like, I'm walking that life.
You 100%. Oh my gosh, I can relate to you in so many ways. But
Yeah,
I had a friend who was speaking to a group where he's from out of town or out of state, and came in, and he was talking about the same thing. He's like, listen, if you have a safety net, and this is hard, but he's like, if you have a safety net, the big safety net, you just don't have to trust the Lord,
Mm,
and that's kind of his deal. His deal is like really leaning on the whole seek first the kingdom. He said, you do this,
yeah.
but that doesn't mean I'm going to have that. And there's nothing wrong with, like, obviously, like, that your friend or our friends doing what they're doing. But on some level, if you're doing it just for the safety net, then maybe you don't have to trust. That's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And, so it was something that I looked back on my story and I was like, that's something, my reliance on the Lord that is sort of baked into the cake of my calling and career is something that I've, more than just taking it for granted. It's like I begrudge it in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But it's like God, I know this is my cross to bear, but it'd be really nice to switch up the crosses every once in a while.
No,
Can
man, for sure.
I have the burden of wealth
Yeah,
to carry for a while?
100%. You've been looking at my journals lately, like,
Yeah,
come on.
yeah, just for the sheer sake of variety. It's like and I've
100%.
done in that way, but it's so there's definitely that aspect to it where it is, there is a deep it's deeply rooted in sort of this like these like earthly stereotypes as we've discussed. But there was this other I think there were some other aspects too that, like, if I'm going to be useful before the Lord, it should be in something that is like, I have to be in something that's more serious. I have to be in something that's more directly going to affect the kingdom of God. And a quote from like way long ago from John Eldridge's book, he says, like, instead of asking yourself what the world needs, just be more alive in what you are already doing, because what the world really needs is people who are more alive. And I butchered that quote, and hopefully
No, I know exactly. No, that is exactly it.
yeah.
And that's what I see in the work through you. Like, I mean, that is, but I know I could feel your pain as far as, it's hard to, like, I mean, when you're doing, I mean, we'll talk about some of this stuff, but when you're doing these long projects and the stuff, like, that's hard to, like, keep in the front of your mind. Like, you're literally changing lives and pointing people to the Lord and you're growing the kingdom. But it's just like, it's hard to keep that in the front of your mind, especially when you're just like slowly chipping away on something, like, literally.
Yeah. And because, at the same time, it's like it's not like God hasn't given us plenty of examples of this through scripture. It's like he always proves that his strength is made perfect in our weakness. And he uses the things that are most practical, that are most immediately at hand, to to work out for his greatest good. You know, it's like you see that in the life of David, you know, as a shepherd boy who just practiced for hours and hours, keeping like animals at bay from his flocks with a sling. But, you know, here he slays the giant, defeats the Philistines. And, you know, it's like God used that. That was immediately at hand. He meets us in the practical before he makes the miracle, you know?
Oh, wow.
And like, that's what I've seen him do, like time and time again in my own life is like he just meets me in what is practical. I mean, it was my childhood pastime, making art, and here he's used it in ways that I, you know, of course I'm always stepping in. I'm always like wanting to grow my capability as an artist, in my grow in my hearing of the Lord, so that I can be more attentive to his ways, to know what to put into it. But it's like, in the end, like he'll take a work of art and use it in a way that I never even imagined. I mean, he'll do it in the midst. Yeah. He'll do it in the midst of its making, where he'll do something that, like, he'll meet me in the midst of it, where, like, that's beyond my skill to do. Like, I know that the hand of God was on my work at that moment, and that's happened repeatedly. But also to see how it affects people in the end, you know, and where it reaches people in ways that I could have never gotten there on my own, you know, even in a like clinical psychology setting, like getting to the heart of people. Like, there's just something that, like, that art does in such a beautiful and disarming way that reaches people right where they're at. And at that point, you know, I'm no longer at work, you know, that is I have set the scene for the Lord to take the stage, and he does in such beautiful and miraculous ways. And so,
well, you make people stand in front of the mountain, like, and like, you know what I'm saying? It's like that majesty hits you, but the fact that you could bring that out from a blank sheet, working with the Lord, it's incredible, man.
Oh, well, thank you. And yeah, I mean, it never gets old. It's just so fun. And that's what calls me back to, the easel, to the carver's bench, to the drawing table, time after time.
You know what transformed my life is when I learned this principle from identityexchange.com. I've learned that the fear that crops up in my life on a routine basis is actually from a lie I believe, and a lot of time that comes from some sort of childhood thing that created a false belief and a false identity. Check out identityexchange.com, and I promise your life will be changed if you jump on there, get some resources, and see how they can help transform your life. Well, so just a few more things on kind of like your parents I'm glad they didn't crush that out of you, because I think a lot of us probably could as parents, like, but was your stuff just, was it really pretty recognizable? They were like, man, he's super actually like gifted in this, even as a young kid, like, or is it just that they noticed the passion just of you just loving it so much, and just the desire of it, that it just kind of got on their radar a little bit? I'm just kind of wondering when the parents kind of became aware of, like, this is maybe more than just I like to go fishing, you know.
No, I mean, it was right away. I mean, I would say, like, and I had incredibly intentional, God-fearing parents. And so in that way, it was like they, even, you know, it's like, I don't disparage my father for when he told me, like, when it came time to pick out college, or like, you know, Jake, being an artist is a hard deal, and I don't know if I'd go to school for that. Because in a lot of ways, I still think he was right, because I didn't go to school for art. I actually got rejected from the art program, which we might get into. But you know, so I still think he was right on that score. But I think where it was like more important to me is, like, they were right there to encourage me. And my dad was the first one to ever commission a drawing from me. So he, like, you know, he had this he had this one painting that was, this angel standing over a boy sleeping in his bed.
Wow.
I can't remember the artist. I think it was DeCiani. I'm pretty sure. But so he wanted that for the girls' room because there were, I had 2 younger sisters, and so he's like, Jake, I want you to redo this, but I want you to do it with 2 girls in the bed and not the boy. And I was like, okay. And he's like, I'll pay you $100 if you can do it. And he's like, just do it in pencil. And so I was like, $100 when I was like 12. I was like, this is, that's big money.
Oh yeah, man.
And so that was such a huge like boost to my confidence then. And, I poured my heart into that drawing, and, they still have it framed and hung up on the wall at their
Awesome,
house.
man. That's so cool.
So they were very encouraging in that way, even letting me paint a giant mural of a C-130 on my bedroom wall, even though I destroyed the carpet in the process. They were just.
I bet your dad thought that was pretty cool. Though. Like,
Yeah, he
the
did.
big C-130, like, go for it, man.
Yeah. So, so it was. I mean, that was massive to have like their encouragement and just especially in those early days. And my mom, she has like beautiful cursive handwriting that I always loved, and I think so much of my love for handwriting was in the earliest notes she used to give to me in my school lunch boxes. It was just I had such a love for her beautiful handwriting that it sparked something in me.
Yeah. And well, we're gonna jump around a little bit. The end title of your book really is experiencing God through a life of art and faith.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the book for a minute. And like I said, it came out mid-April. You can get it everywhere. It's super cool, super visual. Which is really awesome, of course. But what made you want to write it? Like, how did this come up? And like, what's the message you really want people to catch from it?
Wow. There's a great story there as well. Cause I, for years I thought, I would never write a book. That wasn't really my thing. And I had lots of people encouraging me to like write a book and stuff, and would just sort of put it off. Even got some serious, got approached by a couple of publishers, but the time wasn't right. And my heart wasn't into it. And then, and it wasn't really like a book solely about my artwork and the message around my life. It was just sort of other book projects. But there was this time, it was a few years ago, where I was like, you know what? I have I'm collecting so many of these unbelievable stories that God has worked in the background of these art pieces. And I've learned so much, and I want to start writing them down. And I was like, I'm going to do this in secret. I'm not going to tell anyone. I'm not even going to tell my wife. And my wife is in the business. She gets all my email and everything. Like she knows everything. She knows when I take a break and go to the grocery store, because I always.
Oh yeah.
So it felt like a big thing that I was going to kind of secretly stash away this book in the side. And just do it as a daily discipline, write a page or a paragraph every morning, before I dug into work. And so I'd been doing this for a grand total of 3 days.
Wow.
3 days. And I get an email from this woman who's she was a sort of a friend of a friend who had been following us online for a long time. Turns out she's an acquisitions editor. And she goes, Jake, I've been following your work. I see the posts that you guys are putting out on a regular basis. She goes, I don't know if this is going to land with you, but she goes, I really believe that God has a book in you, and, that's around your story. And I would love any way that I can to bring that out.
You're like, nope, that didn't land at all.
Yeah. And because
you already started it at that point.
Yeah, right. And because Hannah gets all of my emails and sees everything, she goes, Jake, what did you think about that email from Lisa Joe? And I was like, I said, that's pretty interesting.
I
And I was like,
started it.
I got to show you something. She goes, what? Do you have like my first book started in your room or something like that? And I was like, yeah.
Actually. Oh my gosh, it's awesome.
Yeah. So that started me down this path, and we had to do a lot kind of in motion, trying to figure out, getting a literary agent and putting a book proposal together. And we were signed up for this book before I even, had a full chapter for them to read. So it was like the publisher kind of went on faith. But we knew like the first style of book that we wanted to enter the marketplace with was what is categorized as a gift book. And so a gift book is different than your traditional like trade book that's just all words. Like this one is very image heavy. The print quality is just absolutely top notch. The quality of the paper, all of those things absolutely mattered to me. And I was like, if I'm going to enter into the literary world, I want to do so like from my authority as an artist. And it's a lot easier to like show and tell rather than just bringing everything through the written word. And so it is like, it's intended to be a very engrossing like visual process. And I drew the entire cover by hand, and that was like a very tedious process. But everything about it, is even down to the details of what elements would be debossed or spot glossed or done in gold foil. All of those things are very intentionally done that draw you into the process of the book. And then even as you turn in, like you have this beautifully like finished cover of the book that's very like tactile, like I said. But then you open it up, and a few pages in, you have my original concept sketch, which is what I presented to the publishers. And so you can kind of see, like, I'm inviting you into my story. And the whole intention of the book is to make you feel like I'm bringing you in through the back door of my studio, that you get to see the behind the scenes. And originally, working with their design team, I sent them all of my images and everything. And they had everything like beautifully formatted and justified with the text. And it looked great. It looked like your traditional periodical. And I was like, it's perfect and all wrong. It's like,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's not me. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I want sketches on the page. I want you to see the lines that I've erased. And so I was like scanning in like sketches from my sketchbook and portfolio, and so that you can get that sense of like all the work and that goes into the becoming of an art piece, so that you have a deeper level of understanding of all of the becoming that happens when you yourself are being made a new creation. And so to match the vulnerability of the text with the transparency of the artistic process was absolutely critical. And that was one of the most challenging aspects, but one of the most rewarding too in creating this book.
It's gorgeous. Okay, I need a hard copy. It sounds like, and
Oh, absolutely.
oh, 100%. I didn't realize that's what we're talking about. Okay, it's even better. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You send me your address and I'll send you an autograph.
Oh man, that'd be awesome. Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
can we? So, yeah, man. Maybe enroll all this stuff into any of these kind of questions, like into the story of the book as well. But like, I just had on my heart to just kind of ask you, just like, let's talk about just the creative like process. Like surely there's like a life cycle that you go through on every project, starting with just the idea and like, where'd you even come up with the idea, and like, what does the Lord want you to do? And from the getting it started to, I'm sure there's some grinded out time
Oh
that
yeah.
just gets soup. So I want to just kind of talk about just creativity and like, a big project. And we will talk also about the one you're working on. Like, you're in the middle of a 4-year project, which to me is like the life of slow. I mean, you guys are so slow, and like, it's so beautiful, but so countercultural.
Yeah.
massive way. So let's talk about just kind of the phases. Like, how do you go to create something, and do you have multiple ones going at the time, and ideating and putting it on paper and grinding it out, and discouragement? Are you trashing stuff a lot and starting over? Like, let's just get behind
Yeah.
the scenes, man.
All right. Yeah. It's all of the above, it's all of those things come into play. And, it's like there might be some art pieces where it's like they kind of bubble up, they just sort of seem to rise out of nowhere. You get like a really clear picture of what they're going to be and how they're going to take shape. And then, you go through that process, but by and large, it's a lot more involved than that.
Oh, for sure.
There's this, you kind of get an inkling of an idea, and it's sort of it's like this very blurred image of what it's going to be, but you just sort of lean in, whether it's around an idea, or maybe it's just an image that comes to you, and you're like, that's a really interesting image. I want to lean into that. And so you start developing. And I always say, like, I think much better with a pencil in hand, because it's a way of like actually getting my thoughts down on paper and getting to move and rearrange them around in real time. And so eventually that sketch grows into an outline drawing, and things start fitting into place. And, I'm like digging the tunnel from multiple directions, because I'm thinking about, the message of the piece, and what is important. Like, what do I want the end viewer to experience through it? And so that'll find like, well, I know this element of symbolism is going to be very important, but how do I incorporate that in? And where does it feel like it naturally grew into place rather than sort of wedged in?
It's like a mystery is unfolding as you're going through that process.
Yeah. And so then that grows into like an outline, and then you can, depending on what the final medium is, then it's like you start the whole process all over again. Now that you just have your bearings. And a lot of people are like, wow, that's,
so that would be the foundation. Now you're like, hey man, maybe that's the foundation. And then you're like, okay, now I know what I want to do. Now it's like, am I going to do this with pen, sketch, charcoal, paint, wood, that type of thing? And then you just kind of have to go about it again.
Yeah, exactly. Or, in this case, like the case that I'm working on right now is it's a family crest. And so I finished it already as a 2-dimensional drawing, which took a year long just to do the drawing on calfskin vellum, because I did it all with stippling, just, dots at the tip of a dip pen. And
oh my gosh.
And so the shading and texture and everything is so rich. It's so detailed, but it also, took me a year to do. I mean, and yes,
a year of dots. I mean, literally.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like the longest ellipses you can ever have. And, and that's what it felt like. I mean, that kind of period of my life just felt like dot, dot, dot.
Yeah.
But,
the Lord's having fun with you too in the process. Like,
oh, totally.
Actions on this, like,
yeah. I mean, and it's kind of ridiculous how much how much I like, as it's in one sense, it's embarrassing how long it takes me to do something. And then on the other hand, it's embarrassing how much I enjoy that process.
Oh, yeah.
There's a great quote from G.K. Chesterton's, it's in his book, Orthodoxy. And he talks about, the exulting in monotony. And he says, you can see this in children because children in spirit are fierce and free. For how many times does a child find their new favorite activity and they ask the adult, do it again, do it again.
Oh, yeah.
And so the adult does it again until they're nearly dead.
Yeah.
And so he says, if we look at God's creation, maybe he is exulting in monotony. Maybe not all daisies are the same out of sheer necessity. Maybe all daisies are alike because he's never grown tired of making them.
Oh, man.
Maybe he says to the sun every day, do it again. and to the moon every night, do it again. Because God exalts in monotony. And while we have sinned and grown old, our Father is younger than we.
Oh,
And
that's
so it's like
beautiful.
in artistry, there is that element where it's like as you lean in, you exalt in monotony. Eventually you get to this point where it's like you love doing it. And then so it's like day after day, week after week, month after month, it was like I still loved making dots. So, and there are times where it's like where you feel worn down, or the art piece will go through what I call the awkward teenage phase, where it's a little bit, it feels like it's rebelling against you, and it's not quite its own. It's not as like cool and exciting as like the first burgeoning concept sketch, but it's nowhere near the finished glory of the final piece yet. And so it's like you really have to like lean in as the parent of that piece and kind of bring them through this awkward teenage phase. And then
Like the art's getting sanctified by you. I mean, it's like
and then the end part is like you get to the end, and there's always like there's always this duality that you have to deal with, especially as a professional artist, that it's like what's done in the studio is sacred, but then it has to like become a product. You have to put a price on it. And I think that's where a lot of artists struggle. That's where a lot of artists become starving, is because it's like, it robs so much of the magic out of the process to do that. But, it's like, it's something you learn to deal with, that in the end, you raise your art pieces up right. They're like a kid. You raise them up right. You pour your heart into them, but they have to go out in the world and get a job.
Yep.
So you send them off with that.
Yeah, I was wondering that earlier. I mean, I had the thought to ask you, like, if it doesn't sound like you approach it with like, I'm doing this, for money. Because as soon as you start like having to have that like as your main kind of focus up front, instead of just having to value it at the end, I would think that would take a lot of the joy away from it.
It can.
It could.
Yeah, it definitely can. I mean, it's something that you have to like get over. I mean, especially if you're, especially if you feel underpaid for your work. I mean, that can really start sucking a lot of the joy out of it. But but then on the other hand, it's like if you learn to embrace that aspect, and you're like, this is feeding my family, this is putting food on the table. It's like, why wouldn't I pour all of my love and heart into this, when it's like it's sustaining us, and like, and what a gift that is, that it's like God gives me the passion of my heart, and then provides a living through it. I mean, it's just the way
seek first the kingdom, like we were talking about,
Yeah, exactly that.
So what kind of I guess practically speaking, do you typically have, I know you do a lot of wood as well, right? And all kinds of different, obviously pen. Do you paint? You paint as well. Do you?
Yep.
Tell us all the venues and how that works.
So, there's being a penman, like calligraphy is like, it's sort of become like my special sauce. That's kind of the thing that I mix into everything. But so I do a lot of different, I do, drawing in pen and ink, charcoal. I do painting. Mainly, I used to do like airbrush and acrylic and oil. Now I've really focused mainly just on oil. And then I do sculpture in wood and bronze. I've even done a number of moose antler carvings. So it's just, it's quite a mix of all those different things, but and it's nice having that variety, because it's like, by the time I get tired of doing like, just calligraphic works, just writing word after word after word, then it's like I get to break into doing something that of a drawing, and capturing like the two-dimensional form. And then when I'm tired of being stuck in the two-dimensional plane, that's about the time that I get commissioned to do like a big sculpture piece, and I get to break out into that. So, yeah, I mean, for me, that really helps kind of stir the pot and keep artistry fresh in my mind, and always feel like challenged,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
so it's good. It's like kind of like having multiple kids and getting quality time with each.
Yeah. Refreshing on all their different the
Yeah.
varieties. So, do you have multiple? This may be a stupid question, and I'm okay with that. Do you have multiple projects going on all the time? Or do you typically like to just try to get one and knock it out and one and knock it out? How do you operate?
No, I mean, there are multiple projects for sure. And now, book writing has been a new one in the mix as well. And kind of forgot about that. And there's jewelry design. So I guess I did I missed
Yeah,
both.
let's talk about the jewelry stuff too. Also, as you kind of answer that. So yeah, so it sounds like there's all kinds of projects happening.
Yeah, I like to have a good variety. Not too many, because then I start feeling like I'm not able to like actually zone in and be effective at one if I have too many fish in the fishbowl, so to speak.
Mhm.
But as long as I have a few swimming around in there, it feels good
Yeah.
to me. And
Yeah.
then and then I can kind of especially on projects that are really um long, like the one that I'm currently in, the big, carving of the family crest now. It's good to have some like smaller projects along the way that give me a sense of closure, because
Yeah.
it's like it's hard doing a piece that's years long in the making, and you get to the end of a day and you're like, what did I actually
Uh,
do? It's like I moved the ball maybe inches down the field.
4 years worth of carving. I mean, so how do you estimate the time on that?
Um,
To me, like you just kind of know based
yeah,
on experience and history, like I can get inches done in a day.
yeah. It's always like it's always a bit of a it's always a bit of an estimate, and I've kind of learned like uh whatever time I scope out for it, to just double it.
Yeah.
And because it's like I know that that's going to be the case just with life. And also, like, when I get into flow, time sort of disappears for me. So it's like an hour feels like 5 minutes. So it's really necessary to over like
Yeah.
estimate the time that it's going to take me, because inevitably it's like I tend to fill that up. So but yeah, so it every piece is a bit of a guessing game. And you kind of, for the client, you sort of tell that, you kind of couch that up front by saying like, here's how long I think this is going to take me, and if you can give me some, like, I'm going to try really, really hard to land it by this time. But make sure that if they need it by a hard deadline, I've never missed one.
Yeah.
But if there's a little bit of give, then that makes my life
Yeah.
a little less stressful from time to time.
For
So
sure. Um, let's talk about everyday heirloom, and then I want to just talk about you can kind of transition into how have you found the Lord in art in some really cool ways that He's come through and He's used you know creation
yeah,
through you, and just talk about the Lord in all of it as well, just whatever kind of comes to mind. But let's start with, because I want to make sure you talk about the jewelry design with Hannah,
yeah,
and we can talk about your podcast with her as well. But start
yeah.
there, and then let's talk about the Lord and the art as we kind of start heading that direction.
Okay, yeah. Everyday heirloom gets it kind of deservedly so gets its own chapter in the book to really tell that story. So I'll truncate it, but it was it just came at a time in our life where God just spoke very clearly to me. We were kind of at this crossroads of like where we were going to go in a really tight time because I had no commissions coming in. I was working on, I don't think it was, I think it was appointed that I was working on the hymn, His Eye is on the Sparrow at the time. And so the way that God, you talk about the way that God shows up in the artwork, like,
I mean, every day you have to go work on that.
yeah, exactly.
You can't really give you reminded all the time. Like,
Right. And so, it was a time when my wife, Hannah, she was really discouraged. We were pregnant with our second kid. We had just moved into a new house. I mean, it was just a lot of pressures were mounting. And we had a really hard talk. And I kind of like, I can rally the troops. I can, really give a good locker room speech when I need to and like bolster my wife. And I've always been blessed at that. But this time it was falling flat. Everything that I said was just falling on deaf ears and a hardened heart. And,
yep.
My wife was just so discouraged. And so I remember going back into my studio to work on His Eyes on the Sparrow. And I just felt the Lord prompting me. He says, turn it over and pour your heart out to me. And it was done on calfskin vellum, this piece, which is stretched over a piece of board that's all lined with paper. And so I flipped the piece over on its face and I journaled out a whole prayer to the Lord. And it is tear stained and everything. And I was just
wow.
God, remind me of the place that you have brought me in. Remind me of all the miraculous ways that you have parted the waters for us to be here, because I'm beginning to doubt them. And it's like, just remind me, God, of this calling that you have on my life and where we are as a couple. And so, I like dated the prayer and went to bed and like prayed this prayer at the end, like, just God help me. And then it was like in an instant, it was like one of the clearest times that I've ever heard the Lord speak to me. He says, Jake, Hannah has supported you for all these years in your passion. It's now time to support her and hers. And so it was the quickest emotional shift I've ever had in my life of being like on the verge of being depressed to being absolutely excited, and just seeing like God telling us to cast our nets on the other side of the boat.
Yeah.
And that just switched it for me. So I was like so excited the next morning to tell Hannah.
Wow.
And so anyways, you can read the rest of the story and her precious reaction in the book. But that spawned a new business in the form of a jewelry company where she comes up with the designs that God has put on her heart. And then I was engraving them. I either engrave them or I sculpt them in wax, and we use the lost wax method to create these beautiful necklace pieces that are reminders of God's faithfulness to the wearer. And so everyone is just like beautifully woven with all kinds of symbolism. So like one piece is called the Wings of the Seraphim, and it's a triple folded Mobius strip. So it's sort of a phenomenon in mathematics that it's a one-sided design, even though it looks like it has a front and back. And then inscribed in each fold of the Mobius strip are 6 wings that are in this continuous flowing motion. And so just as Bezalel, who was commissioned to create the tabernacle, used the wings of the cherubim to denote the mercy seat of God over the Ark of the Covenant. Now the wings of the seraphim, with the seraphim, the word seraph means to burn. They're the ones that burn with passion for all of eternity for the Lord, crying out to God, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. The whole earth is filled with his glory. They were the ones that were created to always be in the presence of the Lord. And so now you have the wings of the seraphim that are hung over the heart of the wearer, which is the new indwelling of the Holy Spirit and the dwelling place of God. And so it marks that place for the wearer. So he's just, I mean, and like these
That's amazing.
pieces, like, I start them and I don't know where they're going, but they take shape like that. And they've been just like a beautiful exploration of like artistry in this new way to hang them around the necks of God's beloved.
Well, I know I'm thinking like how much more if somebody grabs a piece, grabs one of these like amazing works of art, and probably the Lord's like there's probably some presence with it somehow. I don't know how the Lord works, but it's just like these have been blessed, like, and people who wear them, like you're just almost going to be receiving some of the Lord's glory with it somehow. I don't know.
Yeah.
Works and all that, but that's just really sweet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're just like these beautiful little icons that that point us back to the spiritual. Like through earthly eyes we set our heavenly souls on what is above.
Well, a few more minutes. I want to kind of stay on track with time for you as well. First, what's some good social media ways that they can connect with both you and then Everyday Heirloom with Hannah, and then also talk about your podcast for a minute?
Yeah, so social media is a great way to kind of stay current on all the things that I'm putting my hands to. My wife Hannah, she handles all of it, which is such a grace to me, because I would otherwise neglect it.
Yeah,
but
100%.
she does a beautiful job just building, telling the story of every piece. And so you can follow us. We're most active on Instagram, so you can just find me there at Jake Weidmann. Also, Everyday Heirloom Co. is on Instagram as well. And so those are really great places to just follow along and see what we're doing, and see what the Lord has me doing with my hands that each day.
And beautiful work. And then tell us about your podcast. Are you guys still doing that?
Yeah, we're still doing the podcast, and that's been a great way to kind of, in this format, it's just it's such the medium of our day that it's like people love to have these, like, listen into these kinds of conversations.
Yeah.
And so right now it's been just my wife Hannah and I having these great conversations about whether it's the background stories of how we met and how we got together, and how God even used my art in that a way to draw us together, or talk about the background of how art pieces were created or how the book was made. Gives a lot of good insight into that.
That's really sweet. And get on your website, subscribe to your newsletter, which I did, and you'll get to just keep in touch and get some more great information. Well, let's land the plane, Jake, with answering the question. Like, if you had to, I haven't asked this in a while. It's funny that it came up again. I used to ask it to every one of our people kind of on season 1, but like, if you had to, like, as of now, say, this is kind of my life's message and or my like encouragement to people, what would you say?
Well, what is becoming my life's message, like, more and more, is just encouraging people to find out what it means to not only create, but be created in the image of God. And that's what so much of this book is about, is like how I've gotten to experience that and how that's led to a deeper level of intimacy with God. And that we were all created to create. I may be an artist, and you might think of yourself as completely non-artistic, but that isn't entirely besides the point. You are still creative. And whatever it is that you do, God made you in his image as the ultimate creator. And so he's put within you that same capacity. And so my cry to God's people is to lean into that, to create, to step into being to being formed as you are forming something else, because it's such a powerful way that we commune with God. So and especially in this day and age where it's like, you look at the world of AI, and you look at there's so much to be consumed. It's easy to sit back and be passive, but God is calling us forward to be active and to co-create with him.
Oh man, that's awesome. We should stop there. I made
Right.
too with you, man. I feel like I got so much more to ask you. Which is great. And just the slowness of life. I mean, not mystery of life, just the slow pace that you have to do in order to create like what you're doing, but you're not saying everybody needs to sculpt. I mean,
Yeah.
or put in front of you, and like the pace you have to have
Yeah.
to do that. It reminds me of I don't know if it's the right quote or not, but Dallas Willard said like something like you can't have a spiritual, you can't be like hurried and have a spiritual life at the same time. There's some
Right.
quote like that. So hurry and deep spiritual life can't exist. So it's just all this.
That absolutely resonates, and I often talk, that it's like I'm in no rush to make bad art. And it's like, how much more intentional is God as the ultimate creator to form and transform us more in the likeness of his image. And I think that's and actually that's the how I conclude my book is with the Maker's Prayer, that and the last line of it is, let the lasting change not be the mark on the page, but my soul forever transformed to thy image. And so that's what I think, that God is so intentional, and he's going to continually work in you. And it's not just in this life, but it's even beyond that thin veil, that, even as we enter into eternity, it's further up and further in, as C.S. Lewis described, that we are the art piece. We are one of God's art pieces that is always and ever in the making. So, and it's just, it's a beautiful process.
Yeah. Well, let's stop there. Oh my gosh, that's perfect. Jake, thanks for making time today, man.
Absolutely,
I'm really excited and honored to get to have this time. So thank you for all you're doing. And if anybody wants to reach out to you about a commission, then they can ping you on Instagram and check out your website or through the website and all that. So, okay.
Absolutely.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Bless you and Hannah and y'all's work.
All right. Thanks so much. Take care.